always known that delivering mail is a job with its share of oddities, but nothing could prepare me for the strange assignment that awaited me today. On paper, it looked like a standard delivery, just a package and a set of directions. But this wasn't an ordinary delivery, and the recipient wasn't ordinary either. Cryptids. They're what people call creatures that lurk in the forgotten corners of the world, the ones that science can't explain, but folklore refuses to let go of. Creatures like Bigfoot, the Mokalambembe, and the Wendigo, the kinds of beings you'd hear about in whispered conversations or see on late-night documentaries. But for me, delivering letters and parcels to these cryptids is just another day at the office. They call it special delivery. I call it keeping the peace between the known and the unknown. I've been doing this job for almost 3 years now, and while some might balk at the idea of bringing a package to something that could tear your car in half with its bare hands, I've grown accustomed to it. Most cryptids, it turns out, just want their mail. They don't want to fight. They just want whatever was sent to them by whoever still believes in them, and I deliver. That's my job. Today, however, felt different. This route was one I'd taken before, many times in fact, but it always seemed to have something off about it. Overton Swamp, just outside the small town of Willow Creek, was the stuff of local legends. Sure, there were Bigfoot sightings, but there were also stories of people who just disappeared, vanishing into the fog of the swamp and never being seen again. Something about the place had always sent a chill down my spine. It felt alive, like it was watching me, waiting for something. The locals had their theories, but none of them were friendly. There were the usual warnings, of course. Don't wander too far off the path. Don't stay out after dark. Don't trust the water. All sensible advice, but none of it seemed to quell that sense of unease that always gnawed at the edge of my mind when I was around here. Today, though, was different. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't the looming storm clouds that had rolled in at the crack of dawn. It wasn't even the unsettling quiet that hung in the air like a thick fog. No, today was different because as I drove into the woods, I could feel something change. It was as if the trees themselves had taken a collective breath, and the world had slowed down just a bit. Time felt like it was bending and stretching, almost as if it was holding its breath with me. Something was waiting. I wasn't sure what, but I knew I was about to find out. I reached the familiar fork in the road. The path ahead split into 2 directions, one leading into deeper, darker woods, and the other veering off toward the infamous glowing cave. The cave wasn't marked on any maps, of course. No official signage, no mention in any tourist guidebooks. But the locals knew about it. The glowing cave had been a part of Overton Swamp's eerie history for as long as anyone could remember. They said that it wasn't just the glow that made it so strange. It was what lay beneath it, deep inside the cave. Nobody knew exactly what was in there, and maybe that was for the best. This was my second delivery to the cave. The first time I came here, I was given a cryptic set of instructions. Leave the package at the entrance. Don't look inside, and don't stay longer than 5 minutes. At the time, I thought it was just another weird instruction from a customer who didn't understand the logistics of mail delivery. But when I got there, I found myself standing at the edge of a dark, gaping mouth of rock that seemed to stretch forever into the earth. There was a faint light, a glowing, pulsating blue light, coming from deep within. It was almost hypnotic, like staring into the heart of a storm. I left the package and ran. I didn't ask questions. I didn't stay long enough to find out if there was anything or anyone else in the cave. I just got back in my van and drove away. But today felt different. It wasn't that I was nervous. I had been nervous the first time, sure. But this time, something else gnawed at me. The air was heavier, thicker, as if the very forest itself was aware of my presence and wasn't pleased about it. I pulled the van to a stop, the engine sputtering slightly, as if it, too, was feeling the weight of whatever lingered in the woods. I grabbed the package, this one, wrapped in brown paper, with only a single address scrawled across it, the Hollow Heart, Overton Swamp. The address was odd. I'd never seen anything like it before. Most cryptids had standard addresses, locations that you could at least make sense of. But the Hollow Heart? That didn't make sense. It sounded more like a description than a place. Yet, here I was, about to follow that address to the strange glow of the cave. I hesitated. I never hesitated. But something about the swamp today made me second-guess my instincts. The air was thick, oppressive, and the trees around me seemed to stand taller than usual, their branches reaching out like twisted arms, desperate to grab hold of me. But then I remembered. This was my job. I couldn't be afraid. I adjusted the straps of my bag, making sure the package was secure, and set off toward the entrance of the cave. My boots crunched on the damp, uneven ground as I walked, the faint glow in the distance drawing me like a moth to a flame. Every step I took felt deliberate, measured, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, a low, guttural hum vibrating in the air around me. My breath caught in my throat. I could hear something now, faint but unmistakable, a distant growl, or maybe a rumble, coming from deep within the cave. I had no idea what it was, but I couldn't deny the chill that spread through my chest. I couldn't back out now. I had a job to do. So I took another step, then another, moving closer and closer to the mouth of the cave. The glow intensified with each step, as if welcoming me, or maybe daring me to enter. As I crossed the threshold, the world seemed to shift. The air grew colder, sharper, and the light within the cave flared brighter, illuminating the jagged walls that seemed to close in on me from all sides. The sound of my footsteps echoed through the cavernous space, but it wasn't just my footsteps I heard. There was something else, a soft, rhythmic hum that seemed to resonate through the very stone itself. Something was waiting, and I had a feeling it wasn't going to be friendly. The air grows colder the closer I get to the cave. It's a bone-chilling kind of cold, the sort that feels like it cuts straight through to the marrow, numbing my skin and leaving a prickling sensation along my spine. The ground underfoot is uneven, slick with moisture, and each step feels heavier than the last. My boots squelch as I move, but it's not the sound that's most unnerving. It's the silence that hangs in the air, thick and suffocating. No birds, no rustling of leaves, no animals scurrying in the underbrush. Just the stillness of something ancient, something waiting. As I round a curve in the rocky path, the glow of the cave becomes more pronounced. At first, I think it's just a trick of the light, a trick of the eyes, maybe. It starts as a faint flicker, like a lightning bug, lazily drifting in the distance. But with each step, the light intensifies, pulsating with a strange rhythm. It's not a normal light, not in any sense that I've ever experienced. There's no source to it, not a bulb, not a lantern, not even the faint glow of bioluminescence you might expect in places like this. It just exists, and the more I look at it, the more it feels like it's alive, as if it's breathing in time with me. My heart skips a beat, a sudden rush of adrenaline flooding my veins. Something is wrong. Something is waiting. I take another step forward, my feet dragging, hesitant but compelled, and that's when I hear it. A low growl, deep and rumbling, vibrating through the ground and reverberating up through my chest. My entire body freezes. I've heard plenty of growls in my time. Animals in the wild, the occasional angry dog, the strange noises of the forest. But this is different. This growl doesn't come from an animal. It doesn't even come from the cave. It comes from the very earth beneath me, deep and guttural, resonating like the voice of some ancient being that has waited for millennia to make its presence known. My heart races, my palms sweat, but I don't move. I don't know why I don't run. There's something almost hypnotic about the growl, a warning that wraps itself around my thoughts and paralyzes them. The hair on the back of my neck stands at attention. There's something here, something old, something powerful, and it's making its presence known. The shadows in the cave shift. A massive shape moves within them. At first, it's just a blur, but then it takes form. Slowly, deliberately, like it's testing the light. My breath catches in my throat as I realize what I'm seeing. The ball door. I've heard the rumors, of course. Everyone who works in this line of work knows the myths. The ball door is an ancient guardian of Overton Swamp, a creature said to be as old as the trees themselves, older than the land itself. The story's painted as a protector, someone or something that guards the swamp's secrets. But there's no consensus about what it actually is. Some say it's a spirit of the swamp. Others say it's an elemental force, a manifestation of the earth's anger. Whatever it is, it doesn't welcome visitors. Most people who venture this far don't make it back. There are whispers of those who've been swallowed by the woods, lost to the Baldor's judgment. Some claim it's a mere myth, but those who know better keep their distance. And here I am, just another delivery man, trying to do my job, trying to survive. The Baldor doesn't approach, but its presence is overwhelming. I feel it more than I see it, its weight hanging in the air, the oppressive pressure of something massive, ancient, and utterly indifferent to my presence. I can hear it moving in the dark, but it never reveals itself fully. I don't know if I should be terrified or relieved. It's watching me. I can feel it in my bones. Its unseen eyes, cold and calculating, track my every move. I swallow hard and push through the anxiety clawing at my chest. I have a job to do. The package. I remind myself again that this is what I'm here for. No matter what stands in my way, no matter what lurks in the shadows, I must complete my delivery. I move forward, the steps slow and cautious, but determined. The Baldor doesn't stop me. It doesn't speak, but the air around me seems to thicken, the silence pressing in like a heavy weight. Each footstep feels heavier than the last as I approach the stone altar. The glow in the cave has intensified now, brighter, more intense, as if it is guiding me, or perhaps pulling me in. I don't know what's worse, the thought of touching the altar, or the thought of not delivering the package. Finally, I reach the altar. It's a strange, flat stone slab, smooth and weathered. Its surface etched with markings I can't begin to understand. It doesn't belong here. It's too perfect for the otherwise wild and untamed surroundings. I place the package on it, the brown paper crinkling softly under my fingers as I set it down. My hand lingers for just a moment longer than necessary, as if waiting for something, waiting for permission. The moment the package touches the stone, the glow intensifies. It's almost blinding now, a stark blue light that seems to pulse and breathe like something alive. It surrounds me, and for the briefest of moments, I feel like I'm standing at the center of something vast, something primordial, something that has existed long before me and will continue long after. And then the growl, no, the hum, changes. It deepens. It transforms, as if the very cave is exhaling a sound that resonates deep within my chest. It's not a warning now. It's something else. Something curious. And then, without warning, I hear the voice. You're not scared, are you? The voice is like the wind through the trees. Low, rumbling, ancient. It's not a growl anymore, but it's just as intimidating. The words are simple, but they cut through the air with an authority that makes my blood run cold. I freeze, my breath catching in my throat. My heart races L. I wasn't prepared for this. I clear my throat, trying to find my voice, trying to ignore the panic bubbling up inside me. Just delivery, I managed to say, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to keep it steady. My hands are clammy, but I force myself to stand tall. There's a silence, thick and heavy, before the creature moves forward. Its form is barely visible in the dim light, but I can feel its presence growing closer, like something just on the edge of my vision, always slipping in and out of sight. It's as though it was born from the earth itself, grown from the trees, shaped by the roots, older than time itself. We don't take kindly to your kind, it mutters, its voice low, like the growl of distant thunder. But we'll allow this for now. The cave seems to breathe around me, and I can feel the weight of its words pressing down on my chest. I want to run. I want to leave, but I can't. Not yet. I'm here for a reason, and I've completed my delivery, but I have no idea what will happen next. I don't stick around to find out what the ball door meant. I back away from the stone altar slowly, my feet moving in stiff, deliberate steps. My eyes never leave the massive shape in the shadows. Its presence seems to grow with each passing second, as if the very act of looking at it fuels its power. My body feels heavy, like I'm wading through thick, unseen mud. The air around me pulls at my skin, as if the cave itself is reaching out, trying to keep me there, to tether me to its ancient depths. I feel the weight of centuries pressing down, the silent demand for me to stay, to be part of it. But I don't stay. I don't even breathe until I'm outside. I force myself to turn, the package still clutched tightly in my hand, though it's no longer of any importance. My only focus now is to get out, to reach the safety of the van and drive as far from that cursed place as I can. The ground feels unstable beneath me as I move, my feet unsure, stumbling. The hum from within the cave has stopped, but its echo reverberates through my bones, a low thrum that never quite fades. I make it back to the path, the one that winds through the dense woods, and the very moment I step back onto familiar ground, the oppressive weight lifts, though the unease still lingers in my chest. But the shadows of the cave, of the ball door, seem to cling to me, haunting every step I take. I don't dare look back, Not even once. I know better. If I do, I might never make it out. When I reach the van, I nearly collapse into the driver's seat. My hands shake as I turn the key in the ignition. The engine sputters to life, and I slam it into gear, gunning it down the narrow trail that leads out of the woods. I don't look at the rearview mirror. I don't need to. I know something is there, something watching me, still waiting. The drive back should have taken no more than 20 minutes, but it feels like hours. Every mile stretches out before me like an eternity. The road winding through the woods with a terrifying sense of finality. The farther I get from the cave, the more the air seems to change. The silence in the woods gives way to the subtle buzz of the world resuming its usual hum. The distant chirp of birds, the rustle of leaves in the wind. The pressure in my chest begins to loosen, but it's replaced by a growing unease. My mind races, replaying every moment I spent in the cave, questioning what just happened. Was the Baldur testing me? Or was it something more? Something older? I'm not sure, and that uncertainty gnaws at me, like a phantom itch I can't scratch. As I approach the edge of the woods, where the trees finally thin and give way to the wide, open roads, the sunlight feels strange, too bright, too harsh. It blinds me for a moment, the intensity of it jarring after the dim, almost unnatural glow of the cave. The sudden exposure to daylight makes my skin prickle. My mind struggles to adjust, as though the normal world has become distorted, like I'm waking up from a dream I can't fully remember. By the time I'm out of the forest, my hands are still trembling, and my heart is hammering in my chest, but I keep my eyes fixed on the road ahead, focusing on putting miles between me and what I just left behind. I can't shake the feeling that something is still following me, some presence that lingers just beyond the reach of the light, stretching its claws into the edges of my mind. But I push the thoughts down. I focus on driving. The post office is a welcome sight as I pull up. The familiar building, a sharp contrast to the unease I feel inside. I park the van with shaky hands, take a deep breath, and force myself to step out. The world feels like it's back to normal, but I know better. Something happened back there, something that won't be easy to forget. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzz overhead, the hum of the office familiar and grounding. But when I walk in, I find my boss waiting for me, standing by the counter, his arms crossed, his gaze sharp as he watches me approach. There's something in his eyes, something that makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "You delivered it?" he asks, his voice low, almost too casual. But I see the tension in his posture. He already knows. I nod, though my mouth is dry, the words coming out slower than I intended. "I did." He exhales sharply, like he's been holding his breath the whole time. The look on his face shifts, something between relief and worry. It's the same look I've seen on the faces of other delivery drivers who've come back from the Hollow Heart, the ones who survived. "Good," he says, but there's something in the tone that makes my stomach turn. "You're lucky." I stare at him, confused. "Lucky?" He nods, his eyes narrowing. Most can't handle the Hollow Heart. It's not just a cave. It's alive in a way that makes it more than just a place. We've had to send too many people back. I feel the weight of his words, the gravity of what I've just walked away from. The Hollow Heart isn't just a spot on a map. It's more, much more, and it changes people. I glance toward the window, the woods visible just beyond the street. I can't help but think about it. the cave, the ball door, the hum that still echoes in my mind, the eerie blue light that seemed to pull at my very soul. And I realized something. I'm not just a mailman anymore. I've crossed a line, and I don't know if I'll ever be the same. I don't ask for details. I don't need to. I've heard the rumors, the ones about the mail deliverers who never come back, the ones who, after their run to the Hollow Heart, vanish without a trace. I don't want to be one of those names. I don't know if I'll ever have to go back there, but the thought of it unsettles me. But for now, I've survived, and that's enough. I turn away from the window, taking a final glance at the woods, and try to push the unease from my mind. Tomorrow is another day, another delivery, and I don't know what kind of cryptid I'll be facing next. But I do know one thing. It won't be like today. At least, I hope not.